sideways.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to PGS Treks. I'm your host, Mmmm, and of course, we have with us Julian Mushkin. Julian, how are you tonight?
I am doing wonderful, RM. I'm so happy to be here talking Trek with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Julian. Of course,
Canvas Moody makes life easier. Not only does Canvas offer high crediting rates for as little as 3 years on our...
Okay, I think we just had a little... Okay, there we go. And of course, this week we are going to be covering the most recent Strange New Worlds episode, which premiered, I think it was yesterday. Julian, did you get a chance to watch Strange New Worlds episode? I think it's 3, right?
Yes, it is 3. I did. Very interesting. Kind of a combination of all sorts of past Trek type of ideas they had going on there. And was what it was. We had Lon getting approached by someone in the corridor of the Enterprise saying, "You have to fix it. You have to get to the bridge." And then he disappears. It was obvious he'd been shot. He dies. He disappears. So she runs up to the bridge of the Enterprise, and lo and behold, there is no Pike. All we have is Captain Kirk in charge of the Enterprise, and he's like, "Who are you, and what are you doing on my ship?" Very interesting. We've had a change of history. Well, just with that guy dying, something has happened in the past, and now she and Kirk have to figure out what it was and make it right.
Yeah, she doesn't have to it's not even just figuring it out. I mean, it's I mean, she even gets to stick her tongue in his mouth. Like this is like even more than just, let's say, we're going to figure this out. We can make this work. Who the hell are you? Oh, I hope you don't mind if I kiss you. Like this is like a very kind of matter-of-fact way of approaching things, but we don't even get the payoff. Like we don't even get to see the love scene. I mean, if we're going to go down a route where they are kissing each other, you know, at least let us see the rest of it. But I have to wonder about it because, you know, just personally, it was a little bit all over the place. And certainly it felt like I was watching a show of kids in grammar school who made this up. This is what this felt like. It didn't feel like a professional person even wrote this, Julian. This was so all over the place. And you know, I have to question it because, you know, I just think that it was just so poorly done. So however, I do think that the cities of Toronto might have sponsored the episode.
Well, since they're filming there. But I think
but they had to say the
actually, yeah. I think at the core of this, though, coming fast off of an episode, the trial of number 1, where we had to deal with the genetic, you know, manipulations and stuff like that, and Lawan, dealing with her own her heritage of having an ancestor in Khan Noonien Singh. Somehow, however that happens, but it is in this universe a thing that happened. She's generations removed from him, but she still feels the stigma of it. That's how much that the eugenics war has affected the Federation, and having to grow up with that stigma, and it bothers her. And this is the core of this story is really, forget her and Kirk together, it's her trying to come to grips with her history. And I think that was, for what they've set up, the way they've set it up, I think they hit some pretty good marks. It was very interesting. You know, they kind of, a lot of people have like, why make her a descendant of Khan? And I think this episode said, you know what, we're going to show you why, because we wanted to deal with some of these things. And here's we're going to go right at it. We're not going to dance around it. So I think that was a good thing. As far as the two of them hooking up, I think that they're kind of caught in a rock and a hard place, the producers of Strange New Worlds, because last season everybody was hooking up, everyone, and she wasn't, and it's like she didn't, and now we're like she's practically the prude of the bunch on board that ship.
Look, they took 45 minutes until she finally got a chance to kiss this guy, and then they kill him off before they can sleep together. I have no sympathy for these writers. That was cruel punishment. At least let her have Kirk, the famous Kirk, in the sack once during this episode. She was eyeballing him. They let you see her looking at him in the changing room. I had to see his body, and then the next thing you know, he's dead on the floor. I'm sorry. I am sorry, but that's not how you put a show that is essentially the Love Boat in space for me. And we don't get that satisfaction. Julian, this is a grown woman here. You know, she may never see this man again, which incidentally is the truth. And she doesn't get to enjoy Kirk the right way. It's disappointing, Julian.
Well, since he was an alternate universe Kirk, there's still hope for her to hook up with Kirk at some point. Her Kirk in this universe, perhaps. But I think obviously they were trying to flip the script on, City on the Edge of Forever, as far as Kirk going back in the past and meeting, someone that he falls in love with, and she has to die. And this is kind of an opposite, obviously an opposite, kind of like what they tried to do with Star Trek Into Darkness, where they flipped the whole switch on Kirk dies instead of, Spock dying type of thing. And it just, when they don't know exactly what they're doing, it doesn't work. I think flipping the script on this works a little bit better because it is Luan that we're trying to deal with in her story. The fact that she finally gets to exist for a time with people that have no idea who she is or who she's related to, and that stigma she doesn't have to live with it, and she can kind of set it off to the side and deal with it without it being right in her face. And that, comes through in the story a bit. The fact that she has a chance to kill Khan, she could take him out. But of course, how does that happen? Then you get a time paradox. If she kills him that early, she doesn't exist. So she definitely changes history. So what do? Do you change it so that you save all those millions of people in the future? So she chose to just keep history as it was. And that was probably a tough decision to make. So.
I think that when people try to go back and change the past to change the future, the outcome is never what they hope for. And we've seen that in stories time and time again. So it would have been interesting if she had done that. Another tyrant would have taken the place. You won't necessarily save everyone you thought you would. Just doesn't work out like that because you cannot eliminate every death that occurs in history. So, consequently, some other harmful person would have come along and only God knows what would have happened. It could have made things worse. Yes, it's possible. It could have made things better, but every story we've ever seen doesn't indicate that. Now, I think that she is a character who they tried to give this additional emotional part to. Let's give her these feelings, and she has to be able to process the feelings, and she's never been able to process them. I think she has been able to process them because she's not 12. She's a grown woman, and she's already processed all this stuff. This is something we would have seen from her when she was a teenager, but not as a grown woman who is a person on a member of Starfleet. She's an officer. She's dealt with all this stuff already. So I'm not convinced. Now, I think that she would have taken an opportunity to get to know Kirk better because, this is an interesting opportunity. However, the pairing of the two of them felt very unnatural. And so, you know, it's
So
just,
my fourth.
yeah. So, you know, now mind you, he does have a beautiful body. I think we all saw that. They wanted us to see his body. So clearly they wanted us to look at things that way. Now, I thought it was interesting with the character, you know, the woman who lives forever is there, and, you know, she's not an engineer and they got to figure out what to do. I thought that was fun. That was a little fun thing. And it started to feel like Back to the Future to me for some reason. It was weird. I'm like, why does this feel like Back to the Future? You know, you go for the professor. Maybe she reminded me of the professor in Back to the Future who was doing all these experiments and stuff. Instead, this lady had a gallery and she wasn't that person yet. But this was a made up story that felt like, you know, I went to middle school and I asked a bunch of middle school kids to write an episode of Star Trek, and this is what they would come up with. And it was not their best foot forward by a long shot. And I think they could have done some things that would have been interesting where this episode happened, but they didn't actually meet each other, but they're still, their universes are mixed up if they're going to do something like that, because the pairing of them was not, it wasn't a good match in my opinion. They didn't necessarily complement each other or bring out the best in each other. So if that's the case, and let's say, you know, Kirk had to do this journey happened, they didn't necessarily need to be a partnership in the way that they made this, or at least the implied partnership of them kissing each other. This is implication that wasn't necessarily honest. You know, they could have been communicating with each other, but maybe not together. And it still could have been interesting. But the notion of bringing them together when it wasn't hot enough for them to say, yeah, I definitely want to kiss you. I definitely want to do these things with you, when that really wasn't the case at all. It was in the script, so they had to kiss each other, you know? So that kind of like is like, but if this episode played out where they had to perform things separately throughout the episode, I think it would have been more interesting. They wanted to pair these two together, Julian. This was the goal of this episode and nothing more. She had to have some kind of pairing with him. And then when they introduced, you know, the idea of the other lady who went back, it started to feel like in Loki with the Time Variance Authority, where it wasn't quite organized right or introduced right.
Well, it's interesting. We're introduced to the fact that Romulans have sent an agent back in time to try and do this. And we have to wonder how, given where they were at in the 25th century, having lost their empire, and, you know, how did they get a hold of that technology in the future to be able to enact this? But the other thing that's interesting about that is that we kind of get, I can't remember if they actually said it for sure, but it was implied that in Enterprise, part of the temporal war was being conducted again, that it was the Romulans who were conducting that temporal war in the Enterprise time period. So that continues that story a little bit, where the Romulans are still trying to screw around with the formation of the Federation. And what the other thing that's interesting is the bonus that she mentions that Khan, everything related with Khan was supposed to start in the 90s. She says this line. She said this was supposed to happen in the 90s. Now, anybody who's a TOS fan and knows their canon knows that in TOS, the eugenics wars happened in the 90s. So, you know, Khan and his group escape in like 1996, according to canon Federation record. So this kind of puts it paid that what is happening, this Federation, this universe that we are watching is an alternate universe. It is not TOS. It's definitely not TOS. Now, I don't know if it was Alex or if it was Alex Kurtzman or if it was the guys who are show running Strange New Worlds were trying to say that it's tricky because we keep on having to push these events further in the future because they haven't happened yet. because they haven't figured out that Star Trek is a TV show and Star Trek's history is different from ours. It is not our history. It is not real. It's a TV show. And Star Trek's history has history that happens in the 90s. We didn't experience the eugenics war, so it's not our world. It's not our future. It's not our thing that's going to happen. We may eventually come up with a variation on the Federation, and that would be lovely. But what we've been given in TOS, that's a different history, a different world, and it's not this. Strange New Worlds is not that universe. And, we've been able to accept that there are different variations on this ever since 2009, when the Kelvin universe was created because of J.J. Abrams. So I have no problems with associating Strange New Worlds and Discovery, and Picard for that matter of fact, with a different variation, a different universe that has nothing to do with our TOS canon universe.
That's interesting.
So,
that is.
Yeah, so they can do whatever the hell they want. And that's obviously the meaning. That's what they're going to do. They can sit there and talk about how they're trying to stay close to canon, but they've already jumped that shark many, many, many times. It's not TOS canon. It never will be.
Absolutely, Julian. But what I'm saying is, at least on this regard, is that they didn't do a good job here. And I don't think that these two actors have any chemistry to be kissing each other, at least to a point where, you're going to see this interaction. Like, that was just so unrealistic in considering what this episode was. But they wanted them to have some kind of intimate connection that, I think was, it was just incredibly misplaced. And if you're going to go ahead and make people kiss each other, Julian, they better want to look like they want to kiss each other, rather than have a situation where it's so haphazard. Julian, I
got to say that they actually they have. The point you're making about no chemistry may be very true, and that's how I felt about all of the stuff that they've given us last season too. But be that as it may, that at least they have that in common with an awful lot of other Trek shows, where the script says these characters are going to hook up. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, because they have to, because the story warrants it. And that's happened even in TOS with Kirk. There's been plenty of female leads that he had to become involved with where I was like, yeah, I ain't feeling it. It just ain't happening. So, it's part of Trek history, and it's going to happen. And the writers of this show have not shown me any reason to believe that we're going to get any more in-depth, interactions between characters to make it feel like, oh, they really deserve to, they should.
That's they're a very interesting observation, Julia.
Yeah, they've got 10 episodes per season, and they are truly doing it. We are doing it episodic, and whatever happens in this episode is happening with just a little bit of tongue, service for pardon my.
For me. They did it for me.
Yeah, the pun was kind of intended. As far as carrying storylines through, where the characters are developing a little bit more. I mean, you could make the argument for TOS for those 3 seasons that they were jerky through the seasons and did not connect up very well. But the on Enterprise Incidents, Steve Morris and Scott Mantz went through the show in production order of the episodes, and you could almost make an argument. There's very strong evidence that those characters were growing and you could see that growth within the show as the seasons were going. You could see that things that had happened in the past, they were relying on those things that had happened to inform how the character was reacting in later episodes. And so it was more than just episodic. It was kind of a nascent, serial arc that they were kind of doing for those characters as they were growing into their characters and getting to know each other a lot better. So it can happen. We'd like to see it. I don't see any evidence that we're really going to get that from the writers of this show.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting observation. And of course, the Khan character being behind closed doors, she gets in. And then, of course, finding out this whole thing, as I said, it did remind me of the Time Variance Authority in Loki. Just the manner it was presented in reminded me of that. And I didn't care for that presentation in the Loki series for the Time Variance Authority. And I didn't care for the presentation for this one either. I think it could have been done better. Now, she has this scene where she's sitting with Khan as a child, and he's terrified, and she gets to comfort him and protect him. And yeah.
Well, I'll say this though. It's very interesting. There's a line that she has that sounds like she's talking to him, where she says, "You are right where you need to be." And I was thinking about that later on, and I found myself thinking, is she saying that to him, or is she saying that to herself? Because, again, this episode gives her a chance to really, I know you feel that she dealt with this, or should have dealt with it earlier on. The writers that's not how she's being presented to us. They're telling us that she needed to work on this. And I know that there are adults out there who have had traumas in the past. They have had to still be working on them into their adulthood. So some traumas carry along, and not everybody is able to pick up and go on from them. So I found it interesting that when she says, "You're right where you need to be," that I think she was saying that to herself. She was perhaps at the same time she's saying it to him, but it is a line for herself where she is finally making peace and saying, I needed to be here so I could see this, so I could be able to kind of square my shit away and figure out how I'm supposed to go on with my life in the time period that I live without being tied to this person and this period. So that's kind of how I see it. I'm trying to put my best spin on an episode that has lots of problems.
Well, so you enjoyed this part of the story, Julian?
I found something in there that I could put it in a positive light and say, I think that kind of works for her. If that's the story that they are trying to give us, if that's how they are playing her character, if that's how she, the actress, is playing the character based on what the storyline she's been given, I can see her using that moment and seeing that moment as her kind of catharsis for what she's been dealing with emotionally, for herself. That she had to go through this just so she could figure out how she's going to go forward in her own time without being distracted by her past.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't think she would have ever made it through OCS if she had this issue hovering over her to this extent. So these are supposed to be people who are the best of the best. And
yeah, but you can still have pain, and you can still have issues that you're dealing with, and we know that. We know that from Kirk. We know that Kirk, the youngest captain in Starfleet, we know that he had pain that he's had to deal with that have driven him obsessively, that we've seen this in TOS, that several times drove him obsessively from conscience of the king to obsession itself, where something that happened in his past, he was driven to write whatever it was because it was bothering him so much. So when we get to Star Trek,
that, but I disagree with it completely.
Yeah,
I'm not buying this actress's performance of it, and the way that it's written, I'm not buying it either. However,
I can accept that too. But remember, we also in Star Trek 5, Kirk says, "I need my pain. I need my pain." It is what is part of his makeup. It drives him. So he realizes that. He realizes that the traumas and things that he's had in the past have made him who he is. So
I hear what you're saying. I still don't buy this. I think it was so poorly done, and this really was an example of maybe one of their worst episodes ever. So I wish I could get the hour back that I wasted watching this.
I didn't think it was a waste, but I truly understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, it was not an entertaining episode in my opinion either, but I'm sure there are going to be people who enjoyed it, but unfortunately this is an embarrassment. I think not one of their best episodes, Julian. And from what I have seen, there are a lot of people who enjoyed a lot in the episode, but I can't say I like this episode at all. But
yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I can't believe they pushed this through as an episode.
Well, I'd say this had more going on for it than the very first episode of the season, which was all that hokum with Spock.
That is also true.
So.
Also true. So it's yeah. This was this I'm not going to say anything else about it. It was just, it's not going to stop me from watching the show, like I'm still going to watch the show. But
of course.
It was just yeah. Yeah. It just,
well, heck, we've got a cartoon crossover and Spock becoming fully human. We got all sorts of wonderful things to look forward to this season.
I think this episode would have benefited, and maybe it didn't even need Kirk in it. I don't know. I mean, they tried to cram a lot into this episode.
Wouldn't have resonated for them. Yeah. Well, like I said, they were trying to make their own, city on the edge of forever. So, of course, they needed Kirk, because how could you say it was their own city on the edge of forever if they don't have Kirk? It's like, hey, we got Kirk. Let's make it Kirk. Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, they could have.
We'll make him Earl.
They could have had, like, what I'm proposing is that they could have written an original story where she does go back in time and this happens, but they wanted him to. Yeah, so I think they should have chosen another path, but yeah, it's yeah, this part reminded me of the Time Variance Authority. This was the part, actually, not the scene before, where the woman is like, I need my mechanism back, And I'm like, I guess she has no choice but to give it back. Like I would have kept it, but, and of course she can never tell anybody what happened. It's a secret. It's just.
Well, they can just pop into your freaking room. So what's going to stop her from popping in when you're on duty and taking it? So it's like, why even go through? It's like, you might as well have it because you're going to figure out how to get it anyway. So, it's like, I guess it's nice that you came and asked for it.
That's right.
Instead of just doing it when I wasn't looking.
It just, yeah.
And it's typical of the time, it's typical of the Time Corps.
Yes.
In Trek that we've seen that, they always show up and go, oh, we did this because we had to do this, and too bad if you didn't like it. That's how it has to be.
I agree, Julian. Yeah, it was kind of like, yeah. So
I still can't get over how big that freaking ship is. It's so huge. Everybody's quarters are the size of a freaking, basketball court or something. And I mean, it's just like, why?
Well, there must have been some kind of situation where like people need more room. Maybe they just need more space. I don't know.
No, actually, what's funny is in TOS, in Canon specs, even given in the script, Pike's Enterprise, shortly before the cage, is around 200 something crewmen, right? And then by the time Kirk's on, we're at 400 plus. So they had to cram more people in there because Pike was like, hey, we lost a whole bunch of people on our 5-year mission, and so it would probably help if there were more replacements on board already to pick up the slack when you're on your mission. Not to mention the technology changes. The assumption is that technology changes and a lot of machinery takes up less space, and so you can fit more people in there. But everybody has such huge ass rooms. It's like, where do they have room for everything they need for their supplies and everything? It's all magic.
You think it's cutting into storage space just for general supplies? I mean, they have storage lockers too, Julian. How about that?
Well, considering that they can just make everything with all their replicators, they apparently need a whole bunch of space just to have the raw material that they need to transmute into food and supplies and all sorts of stuff.
Hey,
So,
Julian, we saw what's happening on the ship. What's happening is these excess size rooms are turning the officers into hoarders. Look what's happened to the woman who's the engineer.
I couldn't believe that. She had all that stuff, and I'm like, where the hell is she going to put that in her quarters? It's like two of those items of hers. If it was the original Enterprise and it was actually Scotty, there wouldn't be room in the quarters for all that stuff. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, really? But yes, it's exactly why. They said, you know what, we're going to have this character that's going to have all this shit. And they've got to have room for it.
It's the Star Trek version of hoarders. This is like, why do you have all this stuff in your triple suite? Like,
Yeah.
why do you have all those paintings in your 10,000 square foot room? But
Because space isn't important.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Space
And
is not important. It's not.
she said the character, which I thought was very interesting, Julian, is she said that she's doing this because she doesn't trust that, just in case things. I love
I'll
it.
have stuff to sell off when your utopia goes to hell, essentially.
Is it going to happen in Strange New Worlds? Is it something like this going to happen? I wonder. I mean,
It can't. Well, maybe it can because they've changed everything else, so why not?
And thank God she has those priceless paintings. Julian, this might save the day. We don't know. But yeah, that was interesting to see that she had been hoarding. And then, of course, at the end, she gets a pass because she came through for her. But they were like, "You're not in your uniform," and I'm like, well, she's going to put it on in a second. Like it's okay. Like she'll put it on, but I guess you're not permitted to walk around pretty much while you're on duty without it. But why make a point of saying that she didn't have it on at that moment?
I don't know. I don't even think I was listening at that point. I'm like, if this stuff is all really actually that priceless and actual antiques, why the hell is it on a starship that could get into a firefight with a Klingon or a Romulan?
Very true.
One good hit and that stuff's gone.
This picture looks like one of those group building exercises people have it.
Yeah. Work your eyes and fall backwards. We'll catch you.
That's right. And they're like, I don't know if I can trust this person. I don't think I can trust this person. Oh, wait a minute. At 45 minutes, I'm going to shove my tongue down his throat. So I guess I'm going to trust him. But you know what, Julian, it
certainly it was kind of ridiculous when they got the contemporary clothes and he throws all the clothes into the garbage can. He throws their uniforms in the garbage can.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, you know
that they're
yeah, we know you're
at that time. What is wrong with him? I'm sorry.
Well, you know what's funny is I watched another review of the show of this episode, and they were they liked the episode, but the reviewer made a comment about you'd think they'd want to communicate with each other. Why did they throw their uniforms away? Thinking, and I'm like, remember what period you're in. Those badges are just badges. They aren't comm badges. It's like, so what were, they have no communicators.
They don't look too out of place. I know someone said something about, didn't people notice the uniforms? I don't know. I've seen people dress like this, just, it's pretty common. It's not, maybe the uniforms are, but he's wearing a yellow shirt. She's wearing a maroon shirt. It's not so out of place. It doesn't look that dramatically different, but.
The other, they mentioned how it's so cold and they have to get into better clothing. And it was apparently, Christina Chong was talking about how cold it was when they were filming, and it was like really, really cold. So they'd have these parkas on, and then they'd have to take them off and shoot a scene, and then get back into the parka really quick. But it's mentioned in the animated series from the 70s that their uniforms are made such that they're kind of temperature controlling to a certain extent. So there's been episodes where they had to deal with, they were in very cold climate, and their uniform was helping keep them warm. I don't, maybe they just threw that in the script so that they could excuse not drawing extra new drawings of them in different clothing. That was because it was pretty cheap production, but still, it's canon. So,
I was going to say, someone made a comment about Toronto, and I love Toronto. So if this episode's sole purpose, let's say one of the major purposes was to promote Toronto, I'm all for it because I love Toronto. I love going there. I have a great time every time I go to Toronto. So I love that city. And I think, it's cool. I think seeing them walk around, if that's what, where they're supposed to be, I'm totally fine with that. And I think, but they also mentioned Vermont, right, Julian? Like there's a Vermont portion to this. And I also thought that was cool too.
Oh, yes. They had to drive all the way down there.
That's right. They spent a day. Yeah. They went to the universities. They went to all these places looking around, and that was cool. But I thought it was cool. It was fun to see, them in that part of the country. Usually it's San Francisco. California, which is also very cool. But yeah, Toronto looked good. This was the setting for it was nice. So yeah. But yeah, I was gonna say they. Yeah. So I wonder what next week's episode is going to be like, Julian. Thank you for bearing with me with this because, yeah, it was an experience. It definitely was an experience. It almost felt experimental. I felt like this was an experiment.
Well, remember what Rebecca Romaine has been saying at all the pre-series hype press concert, the press concert, the press meetings where the crew everybody was asking about it, and they were trying to explain what it was, and the catchphrase was, a lot of big swings. Remember, that was the catchphrase, especially coming from Rebecca Romaine. We took a lot of big swings this season. So, they, like you say, experimental. They're doing an awful lot of stuff. They're trying to cram all sorts of different genre because they've decided it's Star Trek, so we can do all sorts of things. So we could do a Western, we could do a this, we could do a that. Apparently, from what Rob's saying, there's going to be a musical. So you know, not only we're having a crossover with cartoons, and we're having a musical, and we've had a time travel, and we've had a court. I've got gnats flying in. We've got a court show that we just watched. So who knows what else we're gonna get? Maybe they're gonna be stranded on a desert island.
Yeah. So
Maybe next we need a police procedural.
This is it's so it certainly it's some thought-provoking. It certainly was thought-provoking. So I'm wondering, with the musical, has there ever been a Star Trek episode that's been straight up all musical? Because I know The Office, there's actually maybe not The Office, but has there ever been a Star Trek episode in history that was straight up musical?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay.
Unless it was one of the Lower Deck animated or something, but I don't think so. I'm just
trying to think of what they would have, what kind of songs they would be singing.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah, I hope they would make it like Chicago, kind of like something like that.
HMS Pinafore.
Yeah, that's true. Data.
What character likes Gilbert and Sullivan?
What character likes Gilbert and Sullivan? You mean from the past?
No, from Strange New Worlds. Una.
Oh, does she?
Yeah. Well, Spock reminds us again, but perhaps you didn't see the short treks that premiered during downtime between season 2 and 3 of Discovery, I think, where it's supposedly Spock's first day on board the Enterprise, and he and Una get stuck in the turbo shaft for a time, and he finds out that she likes Gilbert and Sullivan because she starts singing.
That's awesome.
So I wouldn't be surprised if what we get is some version of the Gilbert and Sullivan musical on board the good ship USS Enterprise.
Well, it's got to be improvement on the team building episode. Maybe that's what I'll call this one. Team building episode. For me. Okay. And we had, it's like so much in it. There was just so much in this episode, Julian. So we got a bunch more to go. I'm just making notes here because I'm putting down team building because that shot was and hoarders. Okay. So let's see what else is going on.
Well, we got a bunch of other stuff. I think Prodigy is the thing right now. Amidst the cancellation of Prodigy, the show has been nominated for a TGA award. That's the Television Critics Award for Outstanding Achievement in Family Programming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they've been nominated for that. And last year, the first season was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Series. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. That is cool. They were. Do you think anyone's going to pick what's going to happen? It says it won it for production design. Here.
Well, yeah. Yes, they won the Emmy. Yeah, for production design. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think eventually someone will. Obviously, award-winning show. Most of the show is already finished. Although I don't know how well that's going to leave them at the end. If they're not going to go on, I don't know if the scripts for season to, you know, end on a nice type of ending. So I don't know where we're at there. It might be difficult for them if it led into like a cliffhanger type of thing for a supposed third season. That would be troublesome, and that would be tough to sell to another station unless, you know, it was like the prospect of like Netflix when they you know took up.
Yes, it's always 3, right, Julian?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, when they finished out like Lucifer and, you know, that kind of thing, they were, you know, paying for, you know, to finish out those shows and the seasons. And I mean, if whoever picks this up, if they're interested enough and they get enough people watching, they might decide to, you know, finish it out on a nice 3-season type of a thing. It's nice to see that it's getting some recognition, and certainly the Save Prodigy movement has been getting an awful lot of support. So,
well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm just reading some of the comments. Wait, someone says, instead of a musical, I want to see the bridge go to prom. That would be boldly going where no Trek has gone before. Certainly an unexpected fire. The suggestions that I've been reading in the comments from all the chat is amazing. And thank you for, you know, I do like to hear everybody's comments. So, but I can't go through all of them, you know, obviously in the show, I can't do that, but yeah. Let's see what happens with Prodigy. I hope somebody does pick it up and they do something with it. I think the intention and the concept was interesting. And if, you know, if something can be done with it and people can have fun with it and it makes an enjoyable experience, that could be something that could be very good for Star Trek. But let's see what happens. What do you think is going to happen, Julian, with Prodigy?
I just hope it gets picked up by somebody. You know, I saw that the first 10 episodes of the first season are now available again on Amazon for Blu-ray DVD purchase. So at least that's there. So at least people will get, you know, the first 10 episodes. Once I think it's gone already, maybe, is what I'm hearing. It may be gone already from Paramount and
you mean pulled down the network, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they took it off. They took it off, so you can't watch it anymore, or will not be able to watch it anymore on those streaming services. Not that I don't think Nickelodeon's streaming, but you won't be able to watch it there either. And I think that's really weird. That they nope, you can't watch. I guess that had to be part of it if they wanted to be able to sell it.
That is.
I think it is part of their plan. I think they said, look, this show is good. It's getting good reviews. It's getting nominations. The second season is almost in the can. And so they're trying to figure out ways to earn money back because not just Paramount, but an awful lot of other streamers are having to bite the bullet and shed weight because they're just too expensive for their own good, especially given how much money Paramount wasted on, you know, sets and things like that for Discovery. They were more interested in making it look glitzy, and you know, maybe they should have made sure that the stories were really, really competitive and interesting to watch. So it's too bad, but they're not the only ones who did that. You know, Amazon threw, you know, billions to get the Lord of the Rings stuff, and it's just ridiculous. I think, you know, Apple did Foundation. They paid an awful lot for the Foundation stuff, and I haven't watched any of it. I do have Apple now. I don't know if I'm going to watch it because the books themselves, when I read them back in high school, they just didn't really do much for me. But so I don't know if I really care. But maybe that's a good way to go into watching that. But a lot of money was put into that, and I don't know if they've seen any type of return on it. But Amazon doesn't have to worry about that. Apple doesn't have to really worry about that because streaming shows is not their primary earner. You know, they sell things. That's their primary. This is just a side hustle for them. So they've got the money. But Paramount doesn't.
No, you're right about that. I think it's that Apple put a lot of money into Foundation. They threw a ton of money in that production. It looks incredible. I don't know if it clicked with a lot of people. It's a fun concept, but I don't know if it clicked with viewers. But it looks so good, Julian. It looks good. So that's about all I can really say about the Foundation show. Lee Pace was in it, and he was wonderful in it. A bunch of other really good performances. So certainly no fault there. It may not be the easiest thing to translate. Maybe the adaptation that they used was not the best. So that's my feelings about it. But you make a lot of good points with that. So let's keep our fingers crossed. So Prodigy gets picked up. You know someone's going to pick it up, Julian. Someone's going to.
Yeah, I do. I hope so.
And let's talk about Star Trek Harbinger, chapters 10 and 11, guys. This is the book that it's Vanguard, Harbinger Vanguard, right? I should do that.
Yeah,
Vanguard in there, so people don't think it's another Harbinger like some of the other ones. And it's been such. Oh my gosh, chapter 10, Julian. Oh my gosh. What a great chapter.
Yeah, coming off of the heels of the Bombay being destroyed in combat with the Tholians, back at Vanguard, we report that the Bombay is missing. They don't know exactly what's happened, but they fear the worst. Eventually, Kirk gives the word to Robert D'Amato about the loss of his wife, and that was kind of a tough scene. Our ne'er-do-well Quinn, Cervantes Quinn, is beat to crap.
That's right.
For failing to do the job on Ravenar that Gans had hired him to do, and so Gans spares his life. At least he beats the hell out of him, but he has his men beat the hell out of him. But he says, "You owe me a job, and when I ask you to do it, you will do it. You have no choice to do it."
Yeah.
Yes.
And then to Paul, I'm saying the wrong person. To Prin.
To Prin, yeah.
She's been watching Quinn.
Yes. Yes.
How she suspects, and rightfully so, that somehow Quinn's actions have been one of the factors as to why the Bombay was destroyed. And it's very serious. And ironically, Pennington ends up overhearing this kind of a roundabout way. He's going to this locker that he thinks might have his lover's information, and it did. It actually had like letters, right, Julian?
Yes.
I gotta get to the storage locker. He gets to the storage locker, gets all the stuff back, gets the stuff, and as he's about to throw the stuff down the garbage chute, he hears to Prin's maybe voice, and he can hear to Prin telling Quinn, "Look, I don't care what you're saying. You are going to tell me. You're going to stay doing what you're doing, and you are going to be an informant to me." And it's like, I loved that, Julian.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah. She gives him the shakedown because she knows that somehow he is responsible in part for what happened.
Is he, Julian?
Yes.
Okay.
He's definitely responsible in part. He caused the breakdown of the sensor shield. Once that happened, that's when that psionic scream came out and alerted the Tholians to the fact that there was something from their past that they thought was gone. And they didn't like it, and they had to take it out because it was so harmful to them. So that's what they did. They headed there to take it out. And if that sensor screen had not gone down, that probably would not have happened. The Bombay would not have had to make that speed run back without all the repairs made. But you know, again, it's questionable because it comes out later that obviously that Reyes has had the Bombay running around doing everything for them, all the jobs that are too big for the smaller ship. I can't remember which one it is.
Is it the Ravenar or?
Well, no, the Ravenar's the planet. The Sagittarius, the Archer class ship, the really small scout. So the Bombay's been doing all the things that the Sagittarius can't do, and all the other stuff that's too piddly for the Endeavor, the bigger cruiser that's there. The cruiser's doing all the glad handing, promo stuff around all the colonies in that area, and so the Bombay's been picking up the slack for all of this stuff. And the captain is Garrett, usually, or not Garrett. Anyway, she's said, I'll do it, whatever you need. She goes and does it, and they haven't had time to repair the ship adequately. And that plays a big part too. I think that things go differently if they were in 100% working order. That encounter with the Tholians goes a lot better. But
so then, do you think that they could be found negligent or somehow responsible for what happened as well because of the demands they made on the Bombay?
Well, yes. So strangely enough, Rana Desai, the JAG officer, the captain who is the JAG officer, begins a board of inquiry on Reyes regarding his handling of the Bombay. Now, and
that's in chapter 11.
Well, it actually starts at the end of chapter 10. She warns that they have to, or in the middle, somewhere in there, but she warns that this is going to happen. And it's standard stuff. Any commanding officer who loses a ship, and he's the Commodore. All the ships assigned to Starbase 47 are under his command. So whether he was actually...
He feels like she owes him something because they're having a relationship, and he thinks that she's not going to kind of like come down hard on him, but she's saying she doesn't want to have anything to do with this. I know what you've going on. I've been absconding myself because of our relationship. I can't even, I'm just letting you know this is going to be a full-on investigation. Right? Or
yes, she says, while this is happening, we are not going to be seeing each other. Yeah, because yes, it would affect the ethics of the situation, and she's not going to put herself in that situation. So,
but she's already been like, she already has this conflict of interest. She completely doesn't need to be involved in this. But is there no way for her to get out of this investigation, Julian?
I think she's concerned that she would be considered derelict in her duty. She's the lead JAG officer on site. It's her duty to do it. So, and the fact that they were trying to keep their relationship a secret in the first place, so she can't really fall back on that. She can't say, oh, but I'm involved with this guy, and she's an officer. She's got to do what she's got to do. So, well, you could almost say it's a little contrived, but I don't know. For the story, it works for me that she's decided this is the way it has to be for now.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because where they are, it's remote, and there's nobody else out there who can even do this.
But the other thing is, from her point of view, this is just a pro forma thing. She doesn't know at this point how serious things are. She's not privy to the fact that there was this, special Starfleet dig going on Ravenar. She has no idea what they were doing there. it's just supposedly a listening, an outpost to keep eyes on the Klingons or whoever in the area. They don't know anything about that. And the other cover is it's just a mining operation. That's what the civilians think. So, she thinks it's just a pro forma formality for them to go through the Board of Inquiry. And she probably assumes, starting this out, that they're just going to find out that, he did what he gave the orders that he was supposed to give. He was on top of this, that, and the other thing. And it wasn't his fault. There was no way, because hell, six folding ships against one Federation ship. No one would have expected them to be able to, defeat those odds. So I don't think she was expecting them to find as much issue going on here as they did. And a lot of what T'Pring starts to do is, because she's supposed to run cover on what they're doing out there. And so she starts playing some games to make sure that, that information does not get out to the wrong people.
T'Pring doesn't want to. I guess there has to be, and correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like they have to send another ship there, or in the vicinity of where the Bombay was destroyed, or something to this degree. And they have a number of ships to choose from, and they don't want to send the Enterprise. Why?
Well, because the ANA officer Zhang, he knows what's going on, what they're really doing on Ravenar, and there's only a handful of officers on Vanguard that know what is going on out there. It's like Reyes, Zhang, Chitanian, and T'Pring, and the officers that were on the planet at the time at Ravenar. They're dead now. So no, they don't want to send the Enterprise, because they don't want anybody else to find out, because the more people that find out, the harder it is to keep it covered. But they have no choice. The Endeavor is too far away. The Sagittarius is too small. There's no other Starfleet ships that have the science and sensor suites that they need to be able to find out what the hell happened, and to be able to protect themselves in case something else bad happens. So yeah, they don't want to send the Enterprise, but they have to. Not to mention, Kirk had already kind of aggravated Reyes when they first met anyway. So no, he's not happy about sending the Enterprise out, but he does kind of insist that they take their officer Zhang out there, Lieutenant Zhang, to find out what happened, see if they can figure out exactly what happened, recover any debris and the marker buoy, and see if they can, if there are any survivors on the planet surface, perhaps. So yes, so they order them to take off and find out what's going on.
And there was one other question I was going to ask you. How do you think, and of course we don't have the answer yet, but how do you think Pennington is going to handle all this? Because he's in a position where he can report something, but he knows how critical it is that T'Pring's involvement in this and Quinn's involvement in this is kept hush-hush. He's been going to people on the lower decks and getting feedback about Kirk. And now he's going to probably find out that Kirk is heading out to the site where the Bombay was destroyed. How do you think he's going to handle this as a reporter? And, he's crushed by, obviously, D'Amato's death. What do you think his next move is going to be?
He needs to, if I remember correctly, he needs to get more undeniable evidence. He needs solid evidence before he can be putting something through. So everything that he's heard so far has been hearsay. It would be hearsay. He doesn't have any actual proof to back up the statements that he's been given by the people on board. And he hasn't been given any statements on board from like the Enterprise people or others about the Bombay, because nobody else knows. So the only thing he knows now is that T'Pring's saying, you're responsible to Quinn, saying you're in part responsible for what happened to the Bombay, because if you hadn't screwed around with that sensor shield, we wouldn't have had to send her out there. So that's all he has. He doesn't know anything else about it. And again, it would be secondhand, hearsay of him saying, "Oh, well, I overheard this," but he has no proof. He really has no proof of what it is. So that's what he needs. He needs more proof. That's what he's looking for now. His reporter's sense is telling him something has happened that they're trying to keep secret, and it's my job as a reporter to uncover it.
Well, Julian, these 2 chapters were fantastic. I enjoyed them so much. We're about halfway through the book. Am I correct?
Getting on it. I can't remember exactly how many chapters there are. I just finished it like last week. Hold on just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my book's coming apart. Yeah, it looks like 20 or 21 chapters left. Yeah, in the book. So yeah, halfway there.
Okay, excellent. That's good news. We'll do a few more chapters for the next stream. Is there anything else you want to talk about Star Trek related, Julian, before we end the show?
No, I'm good. We got a lot in. We're on. We're going a little over our time, so I think we're good. We certainly got a lot talked about.
We did. Julian, where can people find you?
They can find me right here on the Burnettwork, and they can find me on Facebook.
Excellent, guys. And of course, you all know you can find me on my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay in the fandom. Please do like and subscribe to my channel. Also, like and subscribe to the Burnettwork here, right here. Like and subscribe to this stream, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stream. It was wonderful to see everybody's comments and thoughts about Trek, guys. I love seeing different views, so I love that stuff. Did you have?
I do have one more thing. My episode that I was on Inglorious Trexperts dropped yesterday. So anybody who listens to the Inglorious Trexperts, I'm on there and talking about our favorite things from 1982, and the Wrath of Khan being among them. And so there you go.
Let me see if I can pull that up, Julian, so I can just post it here. Let me just copy that. Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to post Julian's episode here in the chat so you guys can see it. Just give me a few seconds, guys. I'm just opening this thing up so I can copy it and paste it here for you. Let's see. It's hope I did this correctly, guys. Yeah, it's actually just the website, inglorioustrexperts.com. I don't know what's going to bring you to the exact episode, but guys, go to inglorioustrexperts.com and look for which episode is it called?
It's Julian? Like Khan and I'd have to look. That's not on there. I don't have it. Can't remember. But right now, currently, it is the first podcast that pops up because it just popped up yesterday. It just dropped.
Okay, excellent. So when you get to it, I'll just show you guys. I'm just going to share the screen, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you get to Inglorious Trexperts, it's going to look something like this, guys. It's going to say Inglorious Trexperts, right?
Yeah.
And guys, you're going to beat it down, and it's going to say, "Listen to the latest episode," and it's this episode here, right, Julian?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So just go to inglorioustrexperts.com. And then you can listen to Julian's episode here. He was on Inglorious Trexperts for you guys to listen to and enjoy, guys. So make sure you do that today. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for moderating today, as always. My collaborator, moderator, and friend, Tom Jr. Jackson. He also has his own YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel as well, guys. I'm just looking to see if he put his the link here to make sure that you guys check that out as well, Tom. So if you haven't, please put it in for me, Tom, so I can just put that up, and then I can thank you, Tom. Guys, make sure you subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's channel as well. He's a moderator, collaborator, good friend. Guys, you see Tom Jr. Jackson's name all over the place. He has been moderating, and he's fantastic. He also does other things too, like providing me emails and articles, and he's amazing. So make sure you like and subscribe to his channel too. And Julian, it's such a pleasure to do this show with you every week. So with that, I'm going to say live long and prosper, everybody. And guys, remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.